Cernovich, the guy who basically propagated the Pizzagate conspiracy, said this: a judge in Canada gave back Vancouver to the Indigenous, and 2 large provinces have banned hiking in public, even private land. Yes, really. As of this past week, what a joke country. Country is also in quotation. I don't think you know what quotation marks to use for, but I have to talk about this very quickly. If you didn't know, Canada has fallen. R.I.P. Canada. You had a good run. Well, we'll say mixed at best, right? Along the way. But the Americans and the big American accounts like Catturd were going all on in Canada this weekend, and a lot of the Canadians who like to, do performative politics for American audiences were also talking about how Canada was falling. Viva Frey, J.J. McCullough, all these weird right-wing Canadians who, just for one reason or another, dedicate a lot of their content towards pleasing American conservatives and telling them that Canada, yes, is in fact as horrible and bad as you thought it was. But why has Canada fallen? 2 stories. One of them involves Indigenous land title and a large amount of land that has been, in a Supreme Court ruling in British Columbia, been given, and I'm going to now explain why. And they feel, and you're going to see a lot of weird right-wingers saying, that apparently everyone just lost their houses. So that if there's a land-back victory, if a Supreme Court ruling or a court ruling shows that the land title is actually rightfully belonging to Indigenous bands in Canada, then if you have a house in that area, you lose. You lose your home and all your property, and it's gone. Which is a wild statement, considering, do you think when you buy a house, you're buying Canada? Or in America, when you buy a home, are you buying America itself? Have you ever thought about this? Because it's an interesting concept, right? Like, do you own the land? Are you allowed to dig deep into the surface of the earth to try and come out the other side? Can you rip up the wiring and just pull it out of the ground, or destroy the sewage systems that might run underneath your home? Do you literally own America? Are there millions and millions of Americans who own a piece of America? But what happens if you have a condo and you have a cube that's in the sky? Do you own the sky itself? Are you God? Is that how this works, or is there land title? That's usually, in my understanding anyway, how usually home ownership works. And in this case, I'm pleased to announce, before we even start, not a single person has lost their home. The sum total of people who lost their homes is 0. And this may even shock more people to find out that this isn't a land claim between distinctly the Crown of Canada and an Indigenous band. This is actually a dispute between 2 Indigenous bands as to which one has the land title for this little teeny piece of Richmond, BC. Now, you'd never learn that if you're listening to Rebel News or Catturd or any of the right-wingers who were losing their minds over this all weekend. And they were getting so angry about this, I was like, I gotta look into this. What's this all about? And yes, after doing some diving into the story, it's like, oh, this one's actually pretty interesting. This is between the Cowichan Nation and the Musqueam Nation. The Musqueam Nation originally had the title to that piece of the land. The Cowichan Nation is actually saying that they had originally had a longhouse years and years ago. They had evidence of it, and they could prove with, forensic evidence that they actually, in fact, should have the land title to this little piece of land. And then now they're disputing with the Musqueam Nation. This also gets into their ability to have fishing rights without having or needing a license to fish in that area. And that's really what the dispute is about. Normally, the kind of thing that would be, I don't think a single right-winger, especially Americans, would care about. I don't think they'd even bring this up. I think it's just a thing that they would be like, okay, neat, I don't give a fuck. But because all of these right-wing outlets in Canada first started saying, you have lost your house, no property for you, all of you just lost your homes, all these American accounts started doing it, and then they started talking about how, oh my god, Canada has fallen, it's over. And then also, weird Cernovich, the guy who basically propagated the Pizzagate conspiracy, said this: a judge in Canada gave back Vancouver to the Indigenous, and 2 large provinces have banned hiking in public, even private land. Yes, really. As of this past week, what a joke country. Country is also in quotation. I don't think you know what quotation marks to use for, but I digress. So the Pizzagate guy, weird Cernovich, is also saying that this is pretty fucked up. And, I can't believe that Vancouver gave the Indigenous land. So we could do some research because it's not actually Vancouver. I hate to tell you this. There's multiple districts in British Columbia. It's massive. British Columbia as a province, it's so huge. You know, you could basically like fit a lot of, or maybe even all of Europe inside of BC. Like BC is just that big. But there's other cities. Richmond is a separate city from Vancouver. There's a lot of Vancouvers. I'll admit, it's very confusing. Like, don't ask ChatGPT 5.0 to draw you a map of Vancouver. It cannot do it. It will come out as gibberish because we're obsessed with the word Vancouver for some reason. There's like East Vancouver, West Vancouver, North Vancouver, Vancouver Island. Like, we just love the word Vancouver. I'm not even including right now the fact that there's another Vancouver in America. If you just go south of the border, like there's lots of Vancouvers for some reason. We love Vancouver so much. So from Vancouver is awesome. The Cowichan tribes win fishing rights title to historic Richmond lands. Landmark ruling grants descendants of the Cowichan Nation title to the land surrounding the historic fishing village in Richmond, BC, rights to fish in the south arm of the Fraser River. A BC court has handed the Cowichan tribes and other First Nations title over a chunk of federal and city land in Richmond that for centuries was used as a winter fishing village before colonial administrations evicted the people who lived there. A landmark August 7th ruling was handed down for more than 500 days of litigation before the BC Supreme Court. It gives the Cowichan tribe, one of the First Nations, the Pelakut tribe, and the Halot First Nation, as well as the Laxon First Nation in a supporting role, aboriginal title over the tribe's historic village in the southeast of Lulu Island. The ruling also gives First Nation fishing rights to the mouth of Fraser River. In a joint statement, the First Nations plaintiff says, "We raise our hands to the generations of leaders who fought for the return of this village lands from the fishing rights in the Fraser River." I should add, by the way, that this is now a dispute between them and the Musqueam Nation, who had originally claimed land title to this particular area. So multiple defendants are opposing the land claim. In a statement, the BC Attorney General, Nikki Sharma, said the long and complex decision was being reviewed by the province, and all parties have 30 days to decide whether they would submit an appeal. The Musqueam First Nation said in a statement, it fundamentally disagrees with the judgment. As a defendant, the Musqueam had argued that the Cowichan historically sought their permission to fish in the region, but the judge found the relationship was cooperative. So basically, this is a land dispute between two different Indigenous bands. But why is every right-winger saying that everybody in this area just lost their homes? Because they're lying. And if they lie, that story gets out there way faster. It gets amplified. How many fucking people are going to be like looking at Catturd or Mike Cernovich and being like, holy shit, Canada. A whole bunch of people who own all this expensive property right by the water just lost all their property? No. Not a single one did. Okay, so here's how this works, all right? You still own your property title. Your property title is most likely now going to be signed or a signatory with one of these Indigenous bands. No one is saying, go back to Europe. None of the Indigenous bands are doing that. They're all just 100%, yes, absolutely. We now have fishing rights to do in there. If you want to do an excavation project, if you want to excavate resources on the land, you will need their permission. In the same way, you would need the permission of the government of Canada to do the exact same thing in the exact same area if it hadn't been given the land title to the Indigenous bands. I know it seems complex and scary, but this is how it works. It's a lot less frightening than you might think. The court granted Aboriginal title to the Cowichan tribes, several other First Nations. It's roughly 750 acres to 800 acres of Lulu Island in Richmond. The ruling is primarily lands held by the federal and provincial governments, the City of Richmond, the Vancouver Fraser Ports Authority, and other government-related entities, but not private homeowners. Justice Barbara Young has suspended the decision for 18 months, allowing time for negotiation. According to all legal experts quoted in media coverage, owners of the approximately 120 private properties in the affected area will not lose ownership as long as they are not undertaking projects requiring the Crown authorization. But in future situations, developments for new construction, these owners might need to consent from the Cowichan tribes. That's it. It's instead of having to speak to the King of England, you might have to speak to the chief of the tribe or of the band. It depends who is exactly the leader. And that's it. You get their permission. If you get their permission, you get to drill for whatever you're looking for. I don't know, mussels, clams, something. But you know, that's it. That's that, and that's that story. But you'd never believe how it's being reported on by these kind of people.
Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Yesterday in British Columbia, we had what may be one of the dumbest legal decisions ever made in Canada come down. A judge ruled after a 5-year-long court case that yes, Indigenous land title also extends to places like Richmond. If you don't know Richmond, it's a city connected to Vancouver that is a mixed urban and suburban area. But now the Cowichan Indigenous band has land title over it, and it means presumably that if you're the government or private resident and you want to build a house or you want to make major renovations to your house, put up a shed, you may need to get Indigenous Band Council approval by the Cowichan Band in order to do so. Because this is what already happens in places like Powell River. If you want to build a wooden dock off of your property into the water in Powell River, you may have to go through an archaeological dig. You may have to pay for an Indigenous consultation. You may need extra environmental inspections in what is, in effect, a reconciliation industry shakedown. So
I just love how they always frame this as if, like, you know, the Indigenous people of Canada are in this really privileged position, just universally. There's a whole industry, a reconciliation industry. They're just getting so rich off this shit. Everything you're describing is what already exists if you happen to have a rich-ass house that, do you want to build a port for your boat in your fucking expensive-ass property? You might have to consult the government of Canada. And then it's like, yeah, that's usually how that works, right? Because of code, you know, us wanting to actually have regulations on this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, well, in this case, you might have to consult with an Indigenous band. And it's like, yeah. So wait, sorry, the same rules apply, it just in one case. So you'd rather it be the King of England at the end of the day. That's the vibe I'm getting. They're just like, how dare you, when before all we had to do was consult the King of England himself and get permission to build our boat ports. Now we're in a situation where you might have to talk to an Indigenous person. What is the world coming to? Now, it is kind of no frills. It just goes on like this for a long time. He promotes some of the white supremacist party. 1BC is our new white supremacist party, by the way. We just got a white supremacist party, so cool and normal. 2025, fun stuff. We now have a white supremacist party called 1BC, and of course the leader of 1BC made a statement and a series of statements about this, talking about how there's a reconciliation corporate industry. They have all the rights. They're shaking us down. This is like a fucking, you know, abomination. I will add, in her thing, this white supremacist made an entire spiel where she mispronounced some words and misspelt them, I should say. And I was like, how are you one of the people who's all about, like, if you want to live in my country, you gotta learn English, and then you can't even spell in English? What the fuck is wrong with you? But yeah, so that's Dallas Brody here, and obviously being promoted by this other chud. So this is the Canadian Chud's takes. Very similar to this person.
I don't know that there's a good spot to do this.
So this is the other big controversy of why Canada has fallen, apparently. If you didn't know, we are currently in the second worst wildfire season in Canadian history. There's lots of fires going on, lots of damage, lots of destruction. Climate change will come for us all eventually, and it's coming for Canada right now. Now, it really sucks because we're not really doing anything to try and curb this. You know, every day I see another headline where it's like, incredible, it's now cheaper than ever, cheaper than any other form of energy to extract using renewable energy. You should really get on board. And we're still drill baby drill as a nation, because we just got too much gooey goo underneath the surface. But unfortunately, it is resulting in a lot of forest fires. Some of those fires have been started by people. They are much more rare than being started by God, aka thunder, you know, hitting the ground or something to that effect. But for the forest fires that are started by people, they can be campfires that aren't put out properly, people who have campfires when there is a universal campfire ban right now, people who smoke cigarettes don't put out the cigarettes properly, or just, you know, the rare cases of just ridiculous, you know, monstrous fools who are arsonists who are starting these fires. But the majority of the fires are started by natural causes. I'm sorry, this is just science. As a result of that, they've had to take more and more extreme measures to try and prevent people from starting fires. And that includes banning people from entering areas that are of extreme danger. And those extreme danger areas can be areas that are extremely dry. Even if you are a well-meaning, good person who's just going to be doing, like, I just want to go on a hike, they could be banning people from entering these properties. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it is kind of obscene and ridiculous to charge somebody $23,000 for trespassing in this area. And that's what this person got trespassing charged with. And that's the other big story that Americans right now, or Canada, has fallen, because this dude, who's also, I might add, making content out of this, decided, hey, by the way, I'm going to film myself showing you that there's a separation between, I think, somewhere near his property and where the actual federal property is.
I thought it was 25,000. It's 28,872. We've got a landmark court case. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got the BC Supreme Court ruling that First Nations, a bunch of them all together, sued, and they're being given back over 1,800 acres of land in Richmond. This includes major business warehouses like Amazon and IKEA. This includes a bunch of houses. This is insane. Let's jump into this. Here we go. This is the bombshell news coming out. This was just released yesterday by the BC Supreme people in the comments. So we're obviously not going to go through.
Americans, Europeans, aren't you happy that I, A, don't talk like this, but B, actually give you coverage based on facts, research, and truth? Because this is what the rest of the Canadian chuds are doing, by the way. Like most Canadian chuds, I think they reach a certain level of chuddery that they just become Americans in that there's going to be way more money if they become American pundits. That's why you get your Jordan Petersons, your Stephen Crowders, your Gavin McInnes's, your Lauren Southerns, your Lauren Chens. They eventually just go down south. But there is a distinct group of Canadians who haven't either made it there yet, or as you saw with that last dude, are so uncharismatic that I don't even think that there's a place for them in the very easy right-wing griftosphere. But like, you know, this guy, Moose on the Loose, he could eventually, I think, work his way into it if he wanted to, right? There's some people who like to toe the line, like JJ McCullough, for example. He's someone who likes pretending to be a very friendly, silly Canadian who says a boot, and then it makes everyone delighted. And then it's like, oh, you Canadians, you don't even, you guys are just little cartoon characters, aren't you? You say a boot, you make weird sounds, oot, things like that. You drink maple syrup, you like hacky, that's what y'all are about. And you don't realize that, like, JJ McCullough is actually effectively really, really good, very popular channel. I think he's over 1 million subs now. Really, really good at selling this idea to American viewers specifically about what Canada is. And like, hey, by the way, our public healthcare system is a disaster. Don't emulate us. And when you hear Bernie Sanders saying that we should have a public option, Medicare for all, he's lying to you. If you come to Canada and you try to get healthcare, the doctors stab you in the dick as soon as you walk in through the door. It's horrible. I've seen it firsthand. It's real, I tells you. So don't do that. Don't do what we did. Don't make the same mistake we did. Save your balls. But it turns out that, like, you know, a lot of what they tell you or sell you are lies, because they'll pull up stories like this, right, and talk about how this is gross. Can you believe it? All this private property is now going to be lost. This is the definition of you know, take it and leave it. You get nothing. Everyone loses. Like this, I mean, a lot of it does come from obviously chuds like this, but Rebel News was promoting the exact same thing. Hold on, I'll pull up Rebel News's clever little filth. Oh yeah, Drea Humphrey of Rebel News. This is the start of how you will own nothing and be happy. Quotation marks. The Supreme Court of BC just ruled that the Cochin tribes now have Aboriginal title over hundreds of acres of private land in Richmond. How dare they? And this gets, look, 4.8K, 1.1K shares, tons of people, you know, getting super mad, thinking they've lost their homes, they've lost their property, and no one did. Not a single person has lost their property. Dare I say, Amazon has not lost their warehouse. No one is saying, get the fuck out. That's not what a lot of the land back movement's primary operative, you know, modus operandi is. It's not, hey, Europeans, get the fuck out of the country. Go back to where you came from.
Rivers, forests, mountains, farmlands, and everything underneath, under the duress of poverty, forced removals, or incarceration. It's long past time for a reset. Would land back mean putting non-native people on boats back to their countries of origin? No.
I figured maybe just that. I just need to have that as a button so I can just keep pushing it every time one of these right-wing chuds in the US or Canada is like, well, they're basically telling us that we got to go back to Europe. No, they're not. This is not a part of the land back movement. Never was. No one is kicking anybody out of their homes. That's not what this is about.
What we should be imagining is what Canada could look like if we started returning so-called crown lands back to First Nations. Who would you rather control these enormous areas? Corporations who only see in the land dollar signs over the next financial quarter? Or First Nations who have been taking care of the lands for generations? Instead of getting a permit from the government to destroy the land, companies would need a permit from our nations to responsibly use the land. As the rightful caretakers of the lands, First Nations could insist on sustainable logging, ecotourism, and responsible development. In place of dams, mines, and pipelines, Lands returned to First Nations could host solar and wind farms, helping power a new post-carbon economy.
That's what it's about, honestly. So, hey, this would be a great opportunity in time for people who also want to get into those kind of projects, you know, renewable energy, sustainable land development, that kind of stuff. This is a very, very intersectional, you know, it crosses with a lot of other issues, way of achieving that. It's not get out of your house, Whitey, and go back to Europe. It's not you lose your property. It's not you're getting kicked out of your home. It's like, hey, so you own a very nice house on the middle of this like river bend there. So you want to build, what is that? Like an extra boat raft for your boat. Okay, well, you no longer have to consult with the city of Richmond if you're in that particular region. You now have to consult with the Cowichan tribe. And yes, it's going to be the same process as if you were doing it with the city of Richmond, except they might have to maybe put into more accountability the sustainability of the particular project you want to do. Do you want 12 boats? 12 boats to be in that part of the land? Probably not. Probably not going to approve of that for you to have that 12th boat. I'm probably going to say, like, do you need 12 boats? Could you not have one boat? And maybe two, but I mean, 3 is kind of excessive. Who really needs this many boats, honestly? And then it might affect the local fishing population if you want to have your 12 boats. So maybe you could do with one boat. Have you tried one boat? And if one boat's not enough, is 2 okay? Well, then we may have to refuse the 3rd boat. But you know, we're trying to work with you here, something like that. So that there you have it. It's not nearly as scary as they put it out to be. But don't let that stop a good story, you know. And yeah, for the guy who basically walked into the woods and got the $28,000 fine, and the fact that Wright are all loving the story right now, just again, keep in mind that this is about the extreme wildfire risk and keeping people out of areas where they believe that people shouldn't be traveling to or trespassing into simply because they're trying to prevent less people in that area might prevent more fires from starting. Is the amount of money outrageous? Yeah, of course. If I got a $28,000 ban or fine, I would have to dispute it or go bankrupt, you know, kind of thing. Like, that's just an insane amount of money to be charged for doing something. But also, don't farm content off of this. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Because now all these Americans are super upset. They're all mad. It's making fucking, this is the Oregon newspaper. They're all just being like, I can't believe just this, you know, army veteran who just wanted to go through a stroll on his own property, and because of an imaginary line, he crossed into it. I'm sorry. Do you hear what you're saying out loud right now? All these these are the things that you pretend to care about. Don't trespass, don't break the law, don't fucking cross the invisible line of the border, all that kind of shit. Yeah, when it happens to be someone who's just like, yeah, but I just, it seems arbitrary to me. I mean, it is all made up. We did make this all up, all of it. It is man-made. Yes, absolutely. The amount of money you have to pay in that fine, in fact, is actually a currency that is only validated by the existence of our country, Canada. That's where the currencies come from. This is one of the reasons why you get the weirdos like Ian Carroll wanting to refer to the gold system or the gold standard, because they feel they'll have more control over the ability for the government to actually dictate where money comes from. Just one last thing I want to say. Once again, there's another story that came out today about bodies being exhumed, in this case, children's bodies. For a long time, I've been covering, obviously, the residential school system in Canada and the children who died in the residential schools. Last week, I was telling you a story that came out where the records of the churches officially corroborated the Indigenous people's stories themselves about the amount of children who had been dying at those schools. So at this point, you do have the thousands of testimonies of survivors, which, if you don't want to believe thousands of survivors, that's fine. They're still alive. The last school closed in '96. You obviously have the enormous amount of investigation that's being done by the reports of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That one's, you know, pretty in depth and cost millions and millions of dollars, but you don't have to believe that. You've got the church's own records. So that one, I mean, if you want to deny the fact that the church themselves said, yes, this many kids died in our care. I know, that's fucked up, kids dying at schools, but here's the list of the hundreds of children who died in our schools. Here's our records. If you don't want to believe that one, you're still going to get the weirdos who are like, well, I need to see the bones. And so I've also pulled up multiple stories of children's skeletons that have been exhumed across Canada already, and another one of those stories has since come out. They're going to continue to try to do excavation. Content warning for this one, I won't read all the details, but in this case, this was a story involving ground-penetrating radar, not actually discovering the sites, them having to look for multiple different, you know, cross-collaborating with storytellers and Indigenous elders, telling them where they think the children would have been found. They ended up having to use dogs, cadaver finding dogs in this case. And after the use of cadaver finding dogs, they then found the sites and were capable of discovering the burial sites of multiple children, and now hopefully returning some of their remains to their families. And in some cases, they will actually want to do more archaeological research as well as forensic research to find and track down who exactly are the individuals themselves, if they can use any kind of DNA testing with their families to be able to find that. But yeah, bodies are being dug out of the ground of kids. I don't know what else to tell you. It's obviously really, really dark and fucked up, but it's never enough is the other fucked up thing about this kind of stuff. Like, again, the thousands of testimonies of survivors, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the actual records from the churches, all of that, not enough. And then it's like, all right, well, now we got the child skeletons, so what now? Well, how many are there? I actually saw people replying to, posts about this today being like the weirdest fucked up goalposts, like, well, no one said kids didn't die, we're just saying that kids die everywhere, especially in that period of time, and a lot of kids died from tuberculosis, so it's not like blah, blah, blah. It's like, you realize why this is so fucked up, right? Because like initially you were saying the whole thing was a hoax, or you were saying that these things were made up, or that there wasn't even going to be children skeletons there. And now that they're finding them, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, yeah, I never said that there wasn't kids who died. What I meant was that kids died all the time. Because that's the thing that can happen. The kids die, right? But it's supremely fucked up if you had your kids taken from you and then forcibly put into a school where they died at that school. Like the onus would be on the church or the school itself to be able to protect them and keep them safe and alive for you as a parent. And if kids are dying from trying to run away, they're dying from starvation, they're dying from beatings, or they're dying from just actually being killed, like, why did these schools have baby incinerators? That was the thing. They had incinerators for children. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the kids were being sexually abused by the priests, and they didn't want the evidence to exist. And so this is just a fucked up, dark reality of how bad and grotesque this genocide was. But to keep on doing that thing where you just keep on trying to be like, goalpost move, goalpost move, goalpost move. Like, they're never going to be satisfied, right? And like, on the other end, no one is calling for revenge, right? There's not like this call from all these indigenous bands and tribes and groups saying that now we deserve our revenge, right? Blood for blood, we get your children, right? No, it's the same thing with every like group that has been either fucked over or oppressed or colonized or fucking enslaved. They're not asking in the current day and age for your home or your house and to get their revenge now that this has come out. But they also don't want you to deny it, which I think is a pretty fair ask. I think to actually be like, hey, can we teach this? Can more people know about this? Can more people learn about our actual history? That would actually make a lot of sense. Both direct evidence that children did die at the schools. So the team investigating the Cooper Island Residential School in BC has confirmed 171 children deaths at the institution, 50 more than previously known. As residential school historian and someone fighting for residential school denialism, here's the thread. For those unfamiliar with the Cooper Island Residential School, it was one of the BC's first schools, sometimes known as Alcatraz, as the institution was located on an island, making it very difficult to escape from. It was run by the Catholic Church between 1889 to 1975. Roughly 2,100 children from 73 communities across Western Canada attended it. Here's more. The school, its legacy was the subject of the Cooper Island podcast, an 8-part series which I recommend listening to. It's available for free on CBC. In terms of yesterday's announcement, there are significant findings that I think everyone, including the media, should take note about. First, the team's archival research using church and state records confirms 171 deaths of children, 50 more than was previously known. So these are the church records, as well as cross-collaborating it with the actual forensic evidence of the kids existing in the real world. So this is the church itself saying, yes, kids died here. In fact, not only did kids die here, more kids died here than we previously reported. In this case, 50 more than previously talked about. Again, we're talking children. Moreover, there are an additional 51 children whose final status could not be located in the archives, so more work is still needed. But again, we are talking about children. This is all confirmed by archival research using church and state records. You don't need to know the ins and outs of the GPR and other technologies to grasp this as a confirmed truth. More children died than we understood. More research is needed. So this one isn't a matter of, hey, they found or used ground penetrating radar to potentially find anomalies. This is just that the church has records confirming that, yes, lots of kids died there. and then they've cross-collaborated with information of the state itself, showing that the same children who the church identified as having died at the school are also acknowledged by the state as having died as well. So they died at the school. I don't know what else to tell you. There's not much more than as hard evidence as you get, where the church itself, their own records are like, this individual child died here, and then the state is like, yes, we confirmed that that individual child died there. So lots of kids died there. That's just the reality of what happened.
It's a day filled with remembrance and emotions as the Penelika tribe walk along the streets of Chemainus for the 4th annual March for the Children. Every year the tribe invites people to march and remember the children from Cooper Island Residential School who never returned home. This year, the march landed on the same day the tribe released findings of archival records related to 171 deaths at Cooper Island Residential School, 50 more than what is posted at the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation.
And we have identified 342 unmarked graves. 111 of these are possible graves, 133 probable, and 98 are likely.
At 2 other locations around the school grounds, the tribe also located 27 other potential unmarked graves.
This work has many barriers. We do not have access to all the records.
Despite many barriers, other findings include history indicating other children may have been brought out to sea or disposed of in an incinerator inside the school. The work to investigate and prove these stories more definitively is ongoing.
I remain humbled and honored.
For the creator of Orange Shirt Day, Phyllis Webstad, coming to the March for the Children is of high priority.
There's been a lot of adversity when it comes to truth and reconciliation, especially with denialism. How are you coping with that and addressing that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have deniers. Denialism is the last step in genocide. The genocide in Canada is not finished yet.
Cooper Island Residential School survivor Eddie Charlie often shares of the tragedies of what happened to him on the island.
Some kids were pushing a log down the hill, and I was just like, that's my answer. So I just jumped in front of the log and it rolled over me.
Having Phyllis here is like, it's like somebody gave me a key to open that pain in my heart and let go.
And the pain will be felt as the tribe continues to investigate other sites around the school, doing what they can to give names to the children instead of numbers.
The shitty, and horrifying part of the denialists, though, is that, even if you get evidence like that, where it's like, oh, yeah, so we have the official records of the school, and the official records of the school show that this number of children actually died at the school, that's still not enough for them, which is just, wild. I was like, what? This isn't coming from the claims of Indigenous people, which should be enough, by the way, but any form of genocide denial is just going to be horrifying in and of itself. But if that's not enough, if the claims of the families themselves who are like, our kids never came back to us, wasn't enough for you, well, the school's records itself shows that the children died there, and that's what just got revealed, essentially. And the other part about this is that if you watch the documentary that came out, it was nominated for an Academy Award. Highly recommend it. Very heavy, but still incredible. Sugarcane. Watch Sugarcane. You'll see firsthand testimonies of people who actually talk about the baby incinerators and how there was actual ovens where they were cooking the children's remains, and so that they wouldn't have to bury all of them in the backyards of the schools. It's truly horrifying and gruesome stuff, and it took place, but you're still going to get weirdos who are going to try and deny it.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned Indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This video wouldn't be at all possible without the financial support of all the people whose names you see on the screen right now. And if you want to unlock secret bonus episodes, content that we can't post anywhere else, or get the videos early before anyone else gets to see them, please go on to patreon.com/theserfs. For as little as $1, you can help support this channel and help make more videos like this possible. Our executive producers are Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Garrett Sandoval, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Boehm, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Tigwig, Trav, and Words Greenwood. And also, it wouldn't be possible without all the names you see on the screen right now. Again, if you want to help produce this content, it's only made possible through the funding of our patrons. Head on down to patreon.com/theserfs, that's patreon.com